Hello and welcome back. In today's video we're going to feature this padlock, which is an Anchorlass 822, and this is a disc detainer padlock. Now I'm pretty new to picking disc detainers, and I got this one recently to sort of increase my learning. It's a fairly tough padlock as far as I'm led to believe. It's got 11 discs inside. It does have false gates and a recessed keyway, and yeah, well manufactured, so it's a tricky lock to pick. Now when you're picking new locks, progressive pinning is something that's always suggested. And progressive pinning, if we take this pin tumbler here, this is a great example because it's a cutaway and you've got grub screws at the top, and it's ideal for progressive pinning. So if you look in that side, we've got 6 chambers. Each chamber's got 2 pins, and they correspond with the key. So when we put the correct key in, the key pins move out of the way, and the driver pins are left at the top. Now these are really easy to progressive pin. I think pin tumblers in general are also quite easy to pin, because all you need to do on this one is, for instance, what we could do is we could take out that grub screw, remove all the pins and springs from that chamber, and suddenly the lock goes from a 6-pin to a 5-pin. And what you can do is you could just, particularly if you're very first learning, is you could just perhaps 1 or 2 chambers populated, remove all of these pins and springs, using a pinning tray, something like that, to keep everything in order, because you want it to go back in the order that it came out. And what you can do then is just learn to pick those 2 chambers, and once you're able to do that consistently, you pop the next chamber in, pick that, pop the next chamber in, so on and so forth, until you can pick it all the way. So doing it with pin tumblers is fairly straightforward, but I thought, can you do it with disc detainers? So I thought we'd try that today, and we can try progressively pinning this, or trying to figure out how we can progressively pin it, because disc detainer padlocks is a very different locking system to a pin tumbler. So progressive pinning it is going to be a little bit more difficult. So the first thing to do is to strip it apart, see what's inside, and take it from there. Now, not all disc detainer locks can be gutted, but we can see here on this one we've got this little hole there. When we turn the key and open the shackle, there's a little grub screw revealed. So what we're going to do is undo that and pull out the insides and see the best approach to, trying to progressively pin this one. So that's the grub screw out. This is the tricky bit with disc detainers, because all the guts can fall out. I'm hoping that's not going to happen. What I'm going to do is turn it upside down, and hopefully gravity will help me. There we go. So yeah, inside you can see, that's the sidebar there. It just goes on the back. We'll pop him down there, and I'll just adjust these first couple of discs because they seem to have gone out of alignment. There we go, that is all aligned now, and hopefully I should be able to remove the key without spilling the guts of everything everywhere. So I can get rid of that collar now, we don't need that. And also in the back of this one there's this little spring which I don't want to lose. So I'm going to pull him out and put him safely down there. Okay, so if I let go of this, these discs and spacers are going to go all over the place. But if we quickly have a look how a disc detainer works. So inside there's a little recess, you can just see it there, and that's for the sidebar. So the sidebar sits like that. And with the discs sitting as they are, that sidebar protrudes outside the edge of this cassette, for want of a better word, the brass bit that's holding all the discs in place. And if we insert the correct key, where are we going? That way around. Yeah, if we insert the correct key and turn all those discs, the true gates line up. You can see there, they're all lined up, and that means that the sidebar, if I put those all the way in, the sidebar can now sit flat, it retracts into that groove. So let's take this out again without dropping these discs everywhere. It's a fiddly old job to do anyway, and it's a fiddlier job to do when you've got a camera under your nose. So as you can appreciate, looking at all of that, these discs are out of alignment again, just bear with me. So the trouble is, when you when you take this little cassette out, there's nothing to hold everything in. It's not like a pin tumbler where everything is kind of, you know, captive when you take the core out. Yeah, so you've got these 11 discs, and all of those need to be set, need to be rotated in different directions until we line up that slot at the back. But what I was thinking is the way we can progressively pin it is by taking out some of these back discs and putting something in its place that doesn't need the false gates or anything like that. Now, let me just put this down carefully and I'll show you my idea, and then we'll put it into practice, see if it works. Now, a long time ago, I built myself a disc detainer pick, which is this one just here, which is a bit ugly, but it's kind of functional. And I've got this box here with loads of bits of tubes that I used, aluminium and steel tubes that I used to construct that pick. It's since been replaced with the RWB pick, which is absolutely gorgeous, a lot prettier than my one. But what I thought is, I was looking at this bit of tube in here, and I will just grab the micrometer and I will be able to tell you the exact dimensions of this. But what I thought is, if we cut this down, say I could cut like a small section like that, and replace those bottom couple of discs with this tube, or I could do a longer section like that and replace all of the discs except the top few, and hopefully the key should be able to fit down the middle. Yeah, see, that just clears it. That's like a yeah, perfect clearance there on the key. So the key will still be able to go down, and also I'm hoping that this is smaller in diameter to the actual discs, that it will allow movement for the sidebar to go in when the discs that are left in the top are set. So this will slightly, you know, go down a little bit. That will allow this cassette to turn. That will allow this bit to turn at the back, and that allows the ball bearings that I've just thrown over there, allows them to go in, and for the shackle to turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these discs out, and we can see if that is going to work. Right, so we've got it all stripped down. These are the discs that correspond to the key bit in, and these are just spacer discs, so they're generic, they just go in between each of those. And there we've got the cassette all stripped down, and you can see the sidebar slot running down there. So if I grab my tube, and I'll give you some dimensions on this one. So the outer dimensions on this is pretty much 10 mil, 9.9 mil, and the inner dimensions that allow the key to go through. Oh, if I can organise myself. Look to be about 5.5 mil, 5.6 mil, yeah, 5.6 mil, and yeah, 9.9 on the outer. So that's the tube that I'm planning to use. So if I put it in there, you can see that it doesn't fit snugly, and there's a little bit of movement, and that means it won't come out. It's not too small that it will come out of that gap and jam the lock, but it is big enough that when I put the sidebar in, it does move enough for that sidebar to retract. And of course, once the sidebar retracts, that can then turn, and then we can get the lock open. So I think what we need to do is to just decide some lengths that we're going to cut this to. And I think the ideal thing to do is probably to cut, rather than cut in you know, the lengths down just for all of the discs, is just to cut like perhaps 2 or 3 sections, and then we can put those sections on top of each other and progressively pin it. So we can start off with a couple of those sections in, excuse me, and just perhaps a couple of discs, And then as we grow in confidence, we can take another spacer out and put more of the discs back in until eventually we're left with all of the discs in the cassette. So let me just go and cut this down and yeah, see if it works. So I've done a little bit of cutting and filing, and I've come up with these 3 different sized cylinders. And hopefully what they'll be able to do is, obviously I won't be able to use all 3, but if I perhaps use those 2, that gives us room for a couple of discs up the top. I could take that one out and that would give us room for I think 6 or 7 discs in the top, and obviously we don't have to worry about the back ones just yet. Now what I did with these, obviously I filed away all the rough edges because, where's the tube gone? Tube's been put away. Yeah, you get rough edges on the aluminium, you want it all nice and smooth. And I've also chamfered that inner edge, you can just see there. And that is so that the key, when the key comes past the discs that we are going to pick and goes into here, it doesn't snag at all. And also, because it is smaller diameter, we want it to be able to move a little bit to allow that sidebar in, but we also want the key to be able to catch it so we can still use the key to operate this, so that we can still strip it apart and carry on progressive pinning it. So what I thought I would do, I think if I use these 2 smaller, spacers, get you in focus there, that allows me to put 4 discs in the top, these 4 here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll put those 4 in with the corresponding spacers, and then we can start progressively pinning the lock. So let me just get those assembled, and yeah, we can try giving it a little test pick. So as you can see, we've got our 2 spacers in there, down the bottom, these aluminium tube spacers, and then I've put 1 spacer from this pile down here, and I've put disc 4 in, a spacer, disc 3, a spacer, disc 2, a spacer, and disc 1. And the important thing when deciding how long these cylinders are is that when you've got it all loaded how you want, on this particular lock, the Anchor Lass, you just want that top disc to be flush with the top of that cassette, and as you can see there, it's flush, and that means it should work. So if we just pop the key in, if I can get this all aligned without spilling these discs everywhere. So the key goes all the way to the bottom because it goes straight through those ones there. And if we look at the back there, when I turn the key to the open position, all of the gates, hopefully you can see that, yeah, all of the gates line up. And that means that the sidebar will drop in. You can see there the gates aren't aligned, the sidebar's proud, and as we go there, oh, get you in focus, the sidebar drops in. So that means that I think this will work. Drop the sidebar back, pull that out. So what I'm going to go and do is take this cassette, put it all back in this lock body, reassemble it. We can give it a test pick and see if I can pick it with those first 4 discs in. And what I'm going to do is put these somewhere safe so that I know that everything is in order. So yeah, I'll be right back. I just want to quickly point out, I've got this assembled. As with any padlock, and particularly if you're doing something like this, you've got to double check before you put the final screw in that the padlock does operate as it should do, and as you can see, that one does. So now I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and put this grub screw in and we can give it a test pick. So we've got them all set up in the vise now, it's all locked up, the key works, we've tested that, and I've just zeroed all of my discs. And we'll see if I can get it picked. Not promising anything. As I said, I'm a complete novice really with disc detainers, so it'll be a learning process for me. So if I slide my pick all the way to the back, normally there'd be discs down in this section, but if I turn it, just a few degrees offset and come back, you can see that all of that space is where our little aluminium spacer tubes are. So what I'll do is I'll come back all the way there, I'll hit that last disc, turn it around until I fall into the centre, there we go, And hopefully I can see about picking it. I haven't had much of a play with this one, but oh, and there we go, just that easy. I think we're open. Fantastic. That was easier than I was expecting. So I think that all that means is that I've got those 2 spaces in there and I put 4 discs up the top. But I believe on these, I'm pretty sure that the first disc is a 0 cut and the last disc is a 0 cut. So maybe there was only 3 active discs in there. Anyway, progressive pinning is a fantastic way to slowly learn a lock. It can be quite intimidating with something like this. There are 11 discs, there are false gates, it's quite a serious disc detainer lock. And even with a nice pick like this, it can feel like you've been thrown in at the deep end and you're drowning. So I think using progressive pinning in the form of these tubes is really going to help me along, and hopefully it will help you if you're doing the same, learning to pick sort of disc detainers like this that can be gutted. But I think what I'm going to do now is probably do that a couple more times. That was probably a fluke. It opened up way too quick, but I'll play about with it. Once I'm confident picking those 4 discs, what I can then do is, you know, introduce another spacer, perhaps just introduce this one, take those 2 out. I think that gives me 6 discs in there. And then if I just put one of these spacers that I've got in there in, that would mean I think I've got eight discs in there. And then eventually, once I'm happy picking that, I can move up to the fully packed 11 discs. But yeah, fun project. Glad it worked. And yeah, I'm going to carry on picking this now. Thanks for watching. I'll leave a little DMAC logo up there so you can hit subscribe. That's always appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.